Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to Be with Mike G, the show of life, the show of Maker's Mark, Specs, Houston, and so much more. Today, I sit down and chat with Rachael Bloom Soto of Maker's Mark out there in Houston. Took a nice day trip. We discussed the new private select partnership collaboration project with Specs, one of the biggest liquor retailers in Texas, for those of you who don't live here in Texas, called The Riddler. It is a private select batch of Maker's Mark of which nothing is said about it besides the proof. We don't know what blending components were combined to make it. But if you guess correctly, you get an empty barrel that you can share with your friends, and who knows what you'll do with it. It's hard to say. So we talk about a lot of different things about Rachael's live. There was a little bit of technical difficulties in the beginning, but you know what? We persevered, talked about horror movies, and so much more. So without further ado, I hope you all enjoy this great chat with Rachael Bloom Soto. Yeah, if you want to. Obviously, I think your life's probably a lot more interesting than mine, but that's why you're the guest and I'm merely just the host kind of sitting back here. But if you want to ever interject with a question, by all means. Although that might be the first time, decorum-wise, that someone has done that.
Really? I find that actually very surprising.
Well, so given your natural proclivity to ask others questions, right?
Yes.
Why don't you start a podcast?
Oh, gosh. I think maybe the very issue that we're dealing with today, which is technology.
Yeah.
I think technology is so intimidating to me. I think that was a big struggle for me coming from behind the bar into a role like mine, is that everything I do exists in the cloud, and I'm still wrapping my head around what is the cloud, right?
Cloud.
Yeah, the cloud. Remember like 12 years ago when we first started hearing about the cloud, and it was like, what is it?
Right.
Yeah. It's what I mean, our data's in the cloud.
Okay, well then to do it one step even further, the cloud. All right, cloud's a big mystery for sure, right? What about AI? Do you have any feelings about AI? No, this is like kind of a topical thing.
I just hope both teams have fun. I really, I think I don't find myself in a position to speak expertly on it.
No, right.
And so
But like your gut, though, is it something, and you don't, not knowing, because most people are like, well, I don't even know what it does. I actually do know what it does. Does it worry, do you have any gut about it at all? Any Terminator kind of reflexes that people talk about? Or is it not a thing?
I do, something very funny is that, so it's not a secret. I don't keep it secret in any way that I have fairly severe OCD. Mm-hmm. I speak about it really openly, and I think it's important for me to do so, which is why I do it, even if it feels icky sometimes for me to do. So I've had a lot of irrational fears throughout my life, and as a child, robots was one of them, and still kind of is. Yeah, and so Terminator vibes. It's very funny that you said that because yes, very much so. But also, I think. For me, one of the things that I value most highly as a person is authenticity, and I think that I'm sure AI will become sophisticated enough, in the future, and probably even sooner than we think it will. But as it stands, as I understand it currently, I think that there's something authentic that comes from a person with a soul that is hard to replicate even with the most sophisticated technology that I know of right now.
That's a good way to look at authenticity. Well, I do. Do you remember the first robot that caused problems?
Yes, it was the show Inspector Gadget.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't remember even if Inspector Gadget's kind of like he's a human with a soul, right? But he's got like robotic body parts, right? But right, Gadget, yeah, think of it like his arm, like that shoots out. But I think also the bad guy, whose name is maybe Dr. Claw, and I don't remember what he even looks like or if he's a robot or not. But I don't know. Well, that would if they call him Dr. Claw, that would actually make sense. That's pretty funny. But I have no concept. I have no memory of like this show whatsoever. But apparently, it was very upsetting to me when I was really little.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but he always throws his cat off the desk.
Does he?
Not like he smacks it or something. The cat always comes back. He's not mean or anything. I think that's really fascinating though, because I had a similar thing where I watched a couple scary things that my mom would let me watch, and it drove me to love horror movies. It did the exact opposite thing. It's like Stockholm Syndrome for the genre, basically.
Oh, so you're saying that your mom played a lot of horror movies when you were younger?
I think just the key one, because she considered me to be mature enough to watch movies with her in that way. And so every now and again, there'd be a scene like American Werewolf in London. I don't think anybody knows this either. It scared me so much, I screamed and ran upstairs. Oh. But I was like 5 or 6, you know? Yeah.
Oh, you were 5 or 6.
That movie is like pretty young. But now I flock to it. That's how we treat our traumas, isn't it? So we go.
I don't know that I flock to robots or loud noises, but I love horror. I actually, my kind of fun project last summer that was just for me was I read 10 works of modern American horror.
Oh.
And just to see kind of what the genre is doing right now. And I'm so in love with modern American horror currently.
If I recall correctly, IRC, Halloween is one of your favorite times of the year? It is, right?
Halloween is my favorite holiday, yes. So, I'm a weirdo.
No, I mean, it's for me too. Like, I'll bear all summer just so I can hang out in Halloween. I imagine you've planned your costume for this year already.
I think perhaps. I've got a couple ideas. It is, you know what? It's like almost September, which
we're close.
Basically already like Halloween time,
mm-hmm.
right? So this is maybe the latest in the year I've ever gone without having a like clearly defined concept already in the works. But I think that I think I've got some fun ideas floating around.
How about this? What's an idea you might have? Because we don't want to spoiler alert for anybody.
No.
What's an idea you might have that you're not going to use?
Ooh, that I'm less likely to do. That's so good. You know what I'm not going to do this year? I've always wanted to be like just a ghost, which sounds, it's like the most generic Halloween idea. Sure. But costume makeup was something that I have just as a fun hobby have spent some time teaching myself a little bit. And I think I would enjoy one day doing some like extremely glamorous like ghost makeup. So one day, I'm not going to do that this year or next year probably, but maybe I will one day do some really interesting kind of ghost costume makeup.
I like it a lot. Are wounds hard to do?
The blood, well, actually no. The blood part's easier. Yes, wounds are hard to do. Yes, I was the Black Dahlia one year, and I did the Glasgow Grin, and I really did it as professionally as I could, and dedicated many, many hours to getting it right. And yes, it was very hard to. It's where the seam of where the fake skin meets your real skin. It was the part that I found the most difficult to not have like a visible like this is where the makeup starts.
Makeup, is this something that you ever pursued more heavily? Because creativity comes in all kinds of shapes and forms, right? Like creating cocktails and all of that. But was there ever like a formal path that you took to study this makeup?
No, not at all. Not at all. And in fact, I have even my regular daily face makeup, like what I'm wearing right now, I have I've been wearing the exact same face since I learned how to do makeup when I was like, I don't know, 14.
Oh, wow.
But I think that it's an interesting point that you make about creativity, though, because something that really stands out to me about when you and I met each other at a friend's wedding about a year ago, as you mentioned, I remember telling you I'm not very creative. I just admire creative people. And you, I think, said to me, well, creativity comes in all kinds of forms. Like, don't you sing? Don't you write? And I now realize that, like, creativity comes in so many forms because my hobbies have tended to be creative, like costume makeup or, since I was a teenager, I've been kind of casually teaching myself graphic design just for fun, for no reason whatsoever. I write sonnets sometimes just for fun. And, yeah, I think I think creativity is an interesting way to look at costume makeup through that lens.
Well, you don't write music or you don't write stories or whatever, and that's really just kind of a formal way to, what is it, package up the creativity, But I do feel like people innately have these kind of creative tendencies, and they just might not think of it that way, right? But there was something, when I mentioned I had a philosophical question for you, not that all of these haven't already been philosophical, before we talk about why you came to Texas and growing up in Ohio and all of that. Something, and I won't get into the details of it, obviously, because you've lived it, but I believe 2015 or so, you underwent a pretty serious surgery.
Oh, I did.
Yeah. And, you feel to share whatever you wanted to share about that. But I did wonder, because of how serious this situation was, I haven't been anywhere near like a near-death experience or like looming death or anything like that. But did that experience, knowing that maybe you wouldn't be existing much longer, so to speak, did that change the way that you think about life or the way that you live days kind of in and out?
At the time, I was fairly religious as well. This is kind of the thing is like, are we talking about religion right now? Really? Like, that's the two rules. Like, don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics, right? So I was very religious as well at the time. And I was feeling really a lot of struggle about, I'm supposed to have kids and I don't want to.
Right.
Which is a sin in the Catholic Church.
Sure.
And I'm going to just maybe summarize what happened is that I had a fairly powerful experience and where okay, so I went. I'll just say
I know you reveal whatever you'd like to reveal.
It's not a long story. I had I went to confession. This was right before Easter, the time when you're really supposed to confess it all, and so I went to confession.
Actually, this is great for me because I didn't grow up Catholic, although I was around a lot of Catholics, right? So this is good for me. So
Catholic guilt is very real. It turns out it's unbelievably real. Oh my goodness! I make
jokes about that one. That's the only thing I got, I think, from all of my Catholic friends. Is, you're guilty, right? Yeah.
Catholic guilt is so real. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And also later being diagnosed with OCD late in life, it's like really explains a lot about my obsession with like when I learned the term sin of omission and how that really broke my brain for a long time. That's
a thing. I mean, people do that without being religious, right? So
yes. So I went to confession and confessed that I was having trouble wanting kids, which, it seems it's what a powerful struggle to be having to not want something that you're supposed to want in theory. Like that's quite a struggle. And the priest's guidance was to, obviously a prayer of some form, right? He had some real specific guidance that was very meaningful to me. But it was essentially prayer. Yep. And 1 week later, I received this diagnosis that my uterus maybe could technically be saved, but it would be very dangerous to try to save it. And the doctor really advised, taking it right out. And I was like, I'm free of having to continue debating with myself whether I have to have kids or not because I don't want them. And even if we were to take religion out of it, as a woman in society, I think, we're finally getting away from looking at women like, what do you mean? Like, you don't want kids?
See, you say, is it good podcast fodder? Yes, it is, because not only, and these are things that I didn't think we would necessarily be talking about, but that's always the beauty of this, is I always consider it kind of like improvisational, right? But I have, in my experience as an adult, experienced more partners that didn't want kids than I ever realized was, because to me, I don't want kids. It's not a thing for me, right? And a lot of people, my peers, they kind of feel the same way. But it's an interesting thing, and maybe I'll leave it at this, that the power to have to make that choice was kind of taken out of your hands, right? And that must be freeing in some sense, although the consequences that it came with health-wise, right? But it now, having been almost 8 years or so since this happened?
Yes, 8. Yes, like 8. That. Yeah.
does it change the way not you feel about kids or motherhood, but about life in general and how you live your life?
Oh my goodness, yes. And that was the immediate kind of that feeling of freedom. That the immediate result of it was like I realized all of a sudden all the constraints I'd been placing on myself. Like I've always lived kind of in the suburbs of Houston. I'm actually very happy in the suburbs now, and now I've reached the age where it's like, well, people move to the suburbs at my age.
Right.
But I was young, like early 20s. Like I actually like the suburbs, right? But at the time, I was realizing all these constraints I was putting on myself that were like, well, I have to X, Y, Z, like suburbs or not suburbs because if I have kids in the next couple of years.
Right.
And so it's been very, it's been freeing to me in the long term, and especially in that moment, all of a sudden I was like, I could move to Midtown if I wanted to, though. Now I could because I don't owe anyone, I don't owe some potential future person a responsibility.
Yeah.
I can just do things that I want for me, which I think sounds selfish to word it that way, but what is life besides something that we're supposed to experience the experience of, right? I'm wondering something that...
For everybody that's not in this room, Rachel's taking notes, so this is great.
I take a lot of notes. Anyone who knows me knows that I if I don't have my notebook, maybe something's wrong. I've got to take notes. I'm wondering if it's the same, for like a cis het man. Are you asked that, like the same way that women are like, when are you going to have kids? Is it the same? No.
Contradictory way. If I kind of zoom out and it's like, well, it's not Mike, right? It's just men. No one, they don't expect us to answer to anything. It's really strange, right? Like we kind of just do what we want without consequence. And this is the thing that, and actually, thank you for mentioning this because I do want to ask you. I hadn't talked about this, but well, we'll see. We'll try to traverse this. But did you see, and I can cover any of this stuff because of PR, did you see the Barbie movie?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. I want to see it so badly.
It's great.
I feel like also at this point, like I've like read the America Ferrera like monologue so many times online now that like I'm like, oh God, I hope that wasn't a big spoiler because I've definitely read it and everyone's like, that's the moment when I cried, and I'm like, oh, I hope it's not ruined for me because I've read it a bunch of times now.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay, good.
And your perspective on the movie would be different for me because there's a lot of scenes where the female characters in the movie are connecting with Barbie as a toy, and like, well, I didn't grow up that way, so it's not a thing for me that has any kind of connection. But what I will say in this case, a roundabout way of answering your question is Ryan Gosling's first introduction into the patriarchy after leaving Barbie Land is just beautiful because he's like, wait a minute, men have all the power here, and it's just this amazing, sobering moment that he has. And it is cute, and it's funny, and it's the thing that all the men that have seen Barbie are getting offended by. But it's clever, and I love Greta Gerwig for many, many years. And to answer that may be a more apropos answer. People don't ask us the same way they ask y'all. It's an unfortunate fact of all of that. Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. Obviously they don't ask me. I legitimately was like, I wonder if they do actually. I wonder if it's about reaching a certain age or if it's about reaching a certain age as a female presenting person.
It's a great question. And I think that I can safely say and confidently say the expectations on you to answer that question from society are far more deep and stressful and pending than society asking me as a white male, right? Like, I get it. Like, that's how it is. And I own it. I am white. Like, look at this. See my arms? So white. So, and I was a little disoriented given all these technical issues, and the whiskey, the Maker's Mark, is certainly helping me get refocused.
We did really like dive into heavy stuff, and before we even did a hi, here we are sitting down. This is Rachel from Maker's Mark. We didn't do that at any point.
No, and
we
I don't really do that anyway.
Here's some deep stuff.
I like, it's like the movie starts and the camera's right in the midst of the action. That's how I like the stuff.
I like that. That's good.
I always pick like a moment to fade into it. So, okay, but much of your life had started in Ohio. Toledo, was it always Toledo? Because I lived in
Always.
Columbus for a little while. That's where my brother was born.
Oh.
What is it like living in Toledo? I don't think I ever went there.
So Toledo and I want to say those kind of Rust Belt cities in general have experienced a bit of a very recent renaissance. Toledo is now kind of super cool.
Is it really?
Yeah. At the time when I was growing up, it was, I used to describe Toledoans as like a downtrodden people.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Toledo is, I love it. And the reason I left truly was the weather. People from Houston find that really funny because they're like, and you moved to the opposite, terrible, unbearable extreme, but I love the heat as an Arab. I have a high heat tolerance. I love the heat, and the humidity makes my hair look great. So, but yeah, I have a lot of affection for Toledo today and also of what it was 15 years ago. And, you know, when I was in my very early 20s and, you know, getting out and bouncing around town. And it was a Rust Belt city on the verge of building a new identity after a couple decades of hardship following, you know, automotive industry slow collapse.
Because you are creative, and whether, you know, again, whether you think of it that way, kind of directly or not, but also very detail oriented, and then self-proclaimed now OCD, which probably helps you understand, oh, that's why my lens has been this way for so long, right? But in terms of like your folks, what industries were they in? Were they in hospitality? Were they in creative fields?
Yes. So my mom is now a nurse, which, I mean, I say now, like it's very recent, but when I was growing up, my mom was waiting tables in nursing school.
Oh, same with my mom, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, exactly the same.
In nursing school too?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That's great. And my stepdad is a chef, and
cool.
they met because they were. My mom was waiting tables, and he was the sous chef at a seafood restaurant in Toledo. Yeah, and so my sister is the events director for a brewery. There's, you know, they have a brewery that's really expanded throughout the Toledo area, and they're super cool. Shout out to my sister Allie. And yeah, my sister Megan has been within the same restaurant family for probably a decade now.
Oh,
and yeah,
it's part of you, the hospitality itself.
Yes, I say very literally, I grew up in restaurants. I was raised by a chef, and that is, I think, the most foundational piece of me is this industry. It's my blood.
I exactly the same way. That's how my folks met. Because I never met my dad. And so my stepdad, you know, even though he's like my functional dad, the same kind of thing. But let me be perfectly honest. So she was a cocktail waitress. Not that means much different, but he was the bar manager. So there's a little bit of a different thing, right? So they kind of met that way. But I always ask people that because I think somewhere actually physically within us, there's hospitality roots. And I know that you have those kinds of things. And then you were working at Rosewater, like you said, which is one of my favorite bars in the world, mind you.
Mine too.
The ability or the proclivity to take care of others, because I think that's at the crux of hospitality. Is that something that, I mean, I would imagine it's very natural for you, but taking care of others and making sure that they're good, is that something that's important to you?
Oh my goodness, yes. And I wonder immediately the connection between our moms going into nursing from waitressing is, I think it's, you know, one of them requires medical expertise and the other doesn't. But other than that, I find them to be similar in format in a lot of ways,
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
The taking care of people, the waiting on people, the multitasking, being on your feet. Sometimes you can't pee no matter how many hours have I needed to pee, but this ticket printer keeps going off, or like which in a hospital would be somebody's buzzer keeps you know what I mean? Somebody coded, or, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so like we put our own needs on hold, look after others, and, you know, be kind to others. That's, I think, is this a nature versus nurture question, are you asking?
That's a good question, because I don't know if it is or not, but you have that within you, the tendency to want to make sure others are taken care of, yeah?
Oh, Yes, certainly. Oh, yes, certainly. And that's a thing that I actually have asked myself many times as well. Is this a like legitimate care for others' happiness, or is it a sort of defense mechanism, again?
Oh, right.
And I think it's 100% the former. I really love to cook for someone. I really love to make sure things are taken care of. I like to be attentive to details. I noticed you like your water with X amount of ice in it. Like I really, I get so much pleasure out of people being comfortable, and I love to be warm and validating to people. And I think that's, because I think maybe the third one that I didn't pursue, outside of like we spoke about, hospitality industry and nursing, I think the other one that I didn't pursue was to be like a therapist, right? And yeah. And they say and then the fourth one I think is hairdressers, or the people that you divulge all your secrets to, right? I think that I love to be very validating to people and make sure people feel okay,
As I mentioned, I've kind of been writing more, and I've got a motif in how I frame it. But one thing that I wrote about recently was that there are no better group of people to hang out with than hospitality folks.
Oh, no. Oh, and if you're the bartender behind a bar when hospitality comes in, when it's 10 p.m. and you're like, oh, the place from this restaurant, like all these people, they're about to come in at 10 o'clock on every Wednesday. Like my night is good.
It's so good, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Hospitality people are loving, thoughtful, caring, warm, and
they're present
genuine.
Often too.
So because you have to be, I think we develop a presence of mind in consumer-facing industries.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the reasons I'm here in Houston, besides wanting to hang out with you and see some of the folks here in town, is that now I love the Maker's Mark Private Selects. Like I've went through a lot of these. And when my dad and I went to the distillery and had an amazing tour, mind you, and maybe one of the best lunches I've had at that restaurant, it's spectacular.
Absolutely.
They had what I thought was kind of cute, right? So the way in which y'all title them sometimes is really just descriptive. Like the one that I think that we got was like blueberry pie or something like that, right? And I don't know if I agreed with it, but I loved that was what somebody somewhere tasted out of the series. And so we bought a bunch of bottles at the distillery and stuff. And so I had never seen this, and you mentioned it to me the day why I'm in town, but the Riddler makes sense, right? Because you've got ultimately 5 blending components, of which can or may not be in the final blend, but now you just have a bunch of question marks. So I almost was thinking, because you've got these kind of the blending components out here for me, right? And I was thinking maybe because you're talking about horror stuff and we're getting into October, so I want to try a couple of these, but I want to ask you about horror movies that you like as I'm kind of sipping through these.
I love that so much. I'm gonna have a hard time narrowing down which ones I like the
that's
most,
even better,
because I love them all.
Yeah,
I love all my babies equally. And
well, so okay, how about this? So we got number 1 here.
Okay.
Tell me what is number 1 in terms of this stave?
This is we affectionately call it P2. It's our Baked American Pure Stave. This is Baked American Oak Low and Slow Convection Oven.
Oh,
and this is the only American Oak stave that we're going to taste today as well.
Very cool. Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hop into this. But then, to that extent, what's one of your favorite American?
Oh my goodness. I cannot express how difficult it is for me to narrow down.
Oh,
just like, am I going to have to pick only 5 favorite horror movies?
Just what comes to, because I hate the word favorite. I'm not asking favorite.
Right.
Just something that strikes you.
You know what I'll say is the only horror movie that I never want to see again. Actually, no, I'm starting to be like, I could watch that again. But it's been how many years? 5 or 6. It's been maybe 6 years since this movie came out. And no, maybe not that many. It was, I think, pre-COVID, certainly. The only horror movie that I was like, I don't want to see this again for a little while was Hereditary. Hereditary messed me up. It was so effective. Yes, Hereditary was so effective for me. It really messed me up. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. And is it a spoiler alert to say why? Yeah, I think it might be it's been several years. Can I spoiler alert the movie a tiny bit? Demons have, since I was a little kid, again, like, right, Catholic guilt, right? Catholic things. Demons have always been a thing that really messed me up mentally, so yeah.
Yeah. And there's, anyway, I'm not even going to get into Ari Aster stuff, but let's go, because this is good for American oak. I like this. Now, this is, to me, I get this flavor, right? It's very crisp, crunchy, cinnamon, spice, these kinds of things. It's very, like, succinct. But because I want to go to a foreign horror movie, because there's no way I'm going to be able to guess. Because that was, I think, maybe one of the objectives. Is, all right, Mike, well, guess which blend we have in the Riddler, which is the Specs, total question mark bottle. Rachel, I don't think I could do it. And I don't want to be on the hook for it. Even though my palate at times is good, but sometimes it can be just too much pressure, right? I
am so interested to see if people guess it right and how many people guess it right.
Right.
Oh, so the premise of this, by the way, what we're talking about is, so a bottle of Maker's Mark Private Select, there are 5 staves to choose from, and Maker's Mark Private Select is very custom because as the creator of it, you get to mix and match to create a recipe all your own. And every bottle very clearly says, like, this has 1 stave of this, 3 staves of this, as long as there's a total of 10, right? The Riddler is just question marks, which is what Mike mentioned. Yeah, and so what the goal is with this one is if you follow Specs on social media, look at their website. In September, we'll be releasing this one to the public in Specs stores all across Texas that you can get on the website and enter your guess for what you think the stave build is. And Yep. It's cask strength, yeah. I have no idea if I think people are going to do well at guessing it or do badly. Like, I have no idea if, like, I don't have a guess if people are going to be good at guessing what it is.
Well, I want to make a joke about Specs, which is funny. So if I buy this bottle with cash, will they give me a tip to know which casks are involved?
They don't know either. There are 3 people in the world that know what it is.
3?
Yep, I'm one of them. Well, 4? 4. There are 4 people in the world that know what it is.
Y'all aren't ever in the same room at the same time, are you? That could be disastrous for them. Could be lost in history.
Oh, right. Yeah, that thing. Well, we have a designated survivor, though.
Okay.
So,
right?
yeah. That would be really funny. No, but Greta lives in Michigan, so I think we're okay. I think that if Steve and Chris and I all perished somehow in Texas, I think Greta's in Michigan, so it would be okay.
When does this go live? When it will be on the show?
September.
Okay.
Yes.
So next month. So really, just for a few more weeks, you all have to stay separated to make sure that nothing happens.
Yeah. In October, come on to Texas, Greta. I do miss you. So,
there you go. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So Hereditary makes sense. And in fact, I kind of feel like this would be a good pairing, this first blending component of American Oak with Hereditary. But again, whatever kind of excuse I make to drink whiskey is fine. What do you think is the richest of the staves?
It's the one that we're about to taste second.
Number 2.
Yeah,
Perfect.
number 2.
I didn't know that, everybody. I'm not trying to lead this out.
That sounded really like, I was like, okay, the second one's the richest. Definitely say that, right? Ask me about the richest for the second one. No, that's total coincidence. We didn't discuss it.
Okay.
This is the butter in a recipe. This is not our big flavor stave, and so it sometimes doesn't get a lot of love right away, and I'm very defensive of the stave because this is our fat. This is our mouthfeel.
Yeah.
Right? I love this stave.
All right,
so are you going to ask me about a rich horror movie?
Yeah, I was thinking to accompany this, and this is good because I have no format normally. It's just like kind of guiding through these principles. But how about a horror movie that was particularly beautiful for you, like visually, or maybe the sound?
A couple come to mind. I never want to hear the sounds of Suspiria ever again, obviously, right? Nobody does. Like it's like that on purpose, right? Oh, yeah. I think especially Lush. Obviously, A Tale of Two Sisters. This is foreign. Yes, it's so beautiful, and I think impossible to find in a good like high def format. So listeners, do not watch it if you cannot find it in a high def format, which currently we can't. And so I've been for a few years trying to find a good format of it again. Have you seen it?
I saw it in the theater.
Oh my goodness!
So talking about high def.
Yeah, and so beautiful, right?
It is. Yeah, really. I like things that are beautifully said.
Me too.
You know?
Oh, you know what else? It Follows is extremely visually lush.
Oh, yeah. Sounds great, too. Music's really, really nice.
Yeah, it is.
But actually, these 2 movies are a beautiful accoutrement to this. So I can't think of a more contrasting profile from 2 to 1 here.
Yes.
You know, really massive. And so tell me a little bit about the type of oak here. Is it again American oak? Because there's French oak at some point you all use, right?
So, right. The first one we tasted was the only American oak stave. The second one is French oak, and this is our only kind of ridge cut stave. That's not just like a classic kind of flat, nice cut. I brought these, obviously, listeners can't see it, but I brought them, and you can see the ridge cut one. If you think of like Ruffles have ridges with potato chips, right? This is how that stave is cut, which gives it more surface area, and that results in this real rich, fatty mouthfeel.
Man,
right?
It's way more oily.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much more oily. So much more oily. Again, this is like our fat in our recipe, right?
Oh,
yeah.
I love it. I love that.
I clearly have favorites. Like I try to say I don't. I clearly have favorites, and this is one of them.
Well, it's kind of hard to not have a favorite, especially since I'm asking you about movies that could be among your favorites.
Totally.
So you said you moved to Texas because of the heat. I get that. But was there any other compelling reason to come to? Because you could have went to Lubbock or something. Now, no one wants to go to Lubbock, admittedly.
Right. Well, yeah, it was because nobody wants to go to Lubbock. So I was like, here's my two options.
Yeah. Well, was Austin part of the short list too?
Actually, no. It was really felt very much serendipitous how I ended up here in Houston. I was at my parents' house. I lived in an apartment just a few blocks away. I went to college in my hometown, and I'm very family-oriented. I'm a super family-oriented person, and so I spent a lot of my free time still going back to the house I grew up in where my family lived. I'm also the oldest, and so, my sisters were both still there, and we have a younger brother now. He wasn't even born yet at the time.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Was he born yet? 12? Oh yeah, he was born. He was 4 years old at the time. Just kidding. Sorry, Cash. You were alive. So my sister Megan was working on a project where she had to try to trace her family lineage back as far as possible. We have a second or third cousin, Connie, who does genealogy as a hobby.
Okay.
And so my mom was like, well, this is easy. Like, here's your cheat sheet. Just like message Connie and she'll give you the, Ancestry.com, whatever, family tree. And where Connie has effectively traced us back to the literal Mayflower. My mom's parents were literally Mayflower pilgrims, which is insane. I think of myself as so Arabic. It's funny to think of, because that's my dad's family. It's funny to think of my mom's family as being literal Mayflower pilgrims. So anyway, Connie lives in Houston, in the greater Houston area, and so do so many cousins that I have. Like 8 or 9 or 10 cousins that are in my age group that all live in the Houston area, whom I had really never met. Yeah, and so at the same time, this was about February, I got my first kind of significant sized tax return and had always wanted to go on vacation alone, just post up, read books somewhere in a different setting, be alone, right? And it just ended up unfolding that Connie was like, come to Houston. And I said, okay. Ended up meeting my cousins, read 0 books, had the time of my life with my cousins, and realized that the climate and economy were also what I was looking for. I studied linguistics. My goal was to teach English as a second language. And I wanted to move to a large city with a population of Spanish speakers. And that's Houston. All of it, hot weather, it's all Houston.
It checks all the boxes,
yeah,
so to speak.
It checked all the boxes.
When I had this conversation, I love traveling, but I especially love traveling by myself. Even though, I love my partner and I really look forward to traveling more with her, but I still like doing shit by myself. So when you travel, what's the ideal weekend for you if you travel? It doesn't matter where you're traveling to, but just what would you be doing?
If I'm traveling for pleasure?
Yes, only pleasure, right?
Okay. Oh, gosh. Then I'm in a geography where the food is unfamiliar to me.
Oh.
I want to experience cool food.
Yeah.
Even if familiar, maybe it's food kind of remixed, right? Like I moved from a freshwater place to a saltwater place, right? Like, so this was a new experience. Like saltwater oysters were a new experience for me. By the way, I love that I can eat several dozen. I will champion for saltwater oysters, for Gulf Coast oysters.
Gulf,
yeah, even though other people hate,
you're in the minority there.
Yeah, I know. I will champion for it because sometimes you want to eat 50 of something with hot sauce instead of like having to be like, this is a delicacy.
Right? You
Right?
don't feel stuffed either.
Right.
Yeah.
Ideally for me, I'm in like a small town in a country I've never been to, eating cool food at small, mostly quiet cafes where I can read some books, pick up a bottle of wine to take it back to my wherever I'm staying with me. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Oh, I like that. That's different.
Yeah.
Do you appreciate your time alone? Is it something that's really essential for you?
It's absolutely essential to me. As I think it's surprising to learn how many people that work in this particular industry, it's very public facing, and I love to meet people. I love it. But I think it's surprising to learn how many of us are introverts on the inside, and that's a thing that we can access is that, part of us that loves people. And also then I think that then we require a tremendous amount of totally quiet alone time. I often, my commute back out to the suburbs is often in silence, and I really savor that.
Yeah, I like that. Because I used to live in Katy it's been a long time since I've lived in Katy. But what are the suburbs now? What is in Houston? What's considered a suburb?
Well, there are many suburbs, but I myself live really close to NASA, Johnson Space Center.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I live out in Clear Lake.
Oh, Clear Lake. Yeah, I got a lot of Clear Lake friends up there.
Yeah, which I love. And Clear Lake is really kind of booming at the moment.
Yeah,
kind of urban sprawl reaching Clear Lake.
Took some time. So I wasn't planning on trying all 5 of these, and I'm not sure that I will try all 5, but I love the way in which we can kind of exchange, and the contrast between the one blending and the two, the butter, it's spectacular. So if we're going to go for one other one of these 5 blending, what do you think we should do?
It's a controversial choice. My colleagues will find this maybe controversial.
Oh, good. Then we're going to talk about controversial.
Okay, let's do it. Let's be controversial. Let's push the envelope. I am having a bit of a love affair with the Spice Dave, which is this very last one, the number 5.
Okay.
But though, full disclosure, this is the one that I poured for me and Mike at the beginning of our day. So if you want to taste something that you haven't tasted yet, we can do something different.
This is good.
Okay.
I've been enjoying this.
So the Spice Dave, I think that we at Maker's Mark did the world a little bit of a disservice by calling it spice, because what does that put in your head immediately?
Well, I think of chiles and cinnamon.
Right, exactly, right? And I think both of those are accurate, but there's so much more. There's so much. I wish we just called it number 59 or whatever number it was, right? It's so, I think I didn't appreciate it for so long because I found the name to just, I think, like maybe put ideas in my head, but actually what I find in this one is like all the things that I love about like a glass of Malbec, like a good red wine or something. Like I'm just so into it. There is definitely
something else that kind of drives through. I'm trying to almost articulate what it is, but yeah, it's spicy, but that's actually texturally not what it is.
Right. I'm getting I get figs, dates, prunes, plums,
What is it? Baklava?
Very baklava. Right? Yeah. Walnutty. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's not as wide and as viscous as number 2.
Not at all. Not even nearly.
Still in the same neighborhood, I think, flavor wise. But those two, as I'm kind of thinking, well, what is the blend here? So I'm combining in my head, right? It's like, well, this one's short, this one's bigger.
I know, it's fun to try to guess, right?
Yeah, it is. Well, to that extent, given this is a very vibrant, and I won't call it abrasive, but what was a horror movie that you found abrasive?
Oh no! Oh gosh,
the 3, right? So we have 3.
I have a hard time with gratuitous gore.
Sure.
I don't know off the top of my head what's gratuitously gory. I tend to avoid those. That's such a great question. What's been gratuitously gory for me? I love a campy slasher film, and I don't love a graphic gory one. How's that for an answer?
That's pretty good. And what's interesting, and I try not to talk too much about film because I'm always talking about movies, but Texas Chainsaw Massacre rides the line for me.
Does it? Yeah, that's funny because that came to my mind too. Also, so if I were going to rewatch those for the first time in 18 years, I'm so old. If I were going to rewatch those for the first time in 18 years, Mike, which should I watch? The OG one? Should I watch the Rob Zombie? Like what? Please guide me.
You got to watch 1974.
Okay. Okay.
Which some say 73. It just celebrated its 50th anniversary. I might get in but being in Texas because you're not from you've been here a while. Just go drive because when I saw it originally was when I was in Katy. Just go drive on I-10 till you're out of the suburbs, and it kind of gets dusty.
Is it like Range or something?
Well,
Where
I
is
think
it?
it was. I think originally that's where it was filmed,
Oh.
up more close to me. But just go out there, watch it, and then just drive around, and that'll just scare the shit out of you.
Oh, I bet it will. Because
It's
you'll be
really
like, this could happen to me right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very urban legend-y.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, like when when everybody's in high school and they're like, you have to drive over this bridge. Ghosts will push your car over the bridge, right? When it's like, no, actually, just your car moves a little in neutral. Actually, it's just what happens.
Don't take this away from me.
Right. I'm sorry. We have one in Toledo too.
Yeah.
I think we all have one. I think every
got
town
one.
has one.
Well, I've got a couple more questions for you, but one thing I shared with you is that the best tour I've ever had in my life, and there were circumstances to me traveling with my dad, and probably the last time we'll get to travel together and stuff, or at least in that capacity. Going to Maker's Mark was the best tour I've ever had. It's beautiful there. The food was incredible. The hospitality was really, really well entrenched in every element of visiting that distillery. And so when you chose to take the role with Makers, what was your kind of relationship with the brand before they offered you the role?
That's such a great question. It's one that I'm like legitimately, I felt, I'm sorry, I bumped the microphone so hardcore just now. I felt the biggest smile come over my face as you were saying it. So this is the only position I applied for. I was not actively looking.
This was it?
This was it. This is the only one I applied for. I was really happily employed where I was. I was very happy at Rosewater, managing their bar program, and still have a lot of affection for that bar. It's a bar I could walk to. It's still my neighborhood bar when I get off work. It's still where I go, you know, and eat some hummus and, drink a beer and a shot, right? Why Maker's Mark appealed to me, that was, compelling for me to want to apply to, is a brand where the ethos vibes with my own, right? The values really align with my own, which is keeping things local, value on family, like not like turf family. That's so gross, but like the people around you and taking good care of the people around you, being true to where you're from, being true to who you are, and that and also to be super environmentally friendly and good to people, good to the people around you. These are the reasons why Maker's Mark was a brand that I actually felt like I don't want to work for any brand if I'm not legitimately passionate about that product. And I knew that I legitimately could be passionate about this one.
It's interesting, the vibe there. You're brought in to the family. You know what I mean? Brands sometimes do a great job of making you feel like you're part of a thing, part of a community, not always part of a family. It's a different kind of tone that I saw in Maker's Mark. And hence, we've both traveled the world and stuff. I've been to countless palenques in Oaxaca and throughout Mexico and stuff. And like, those are as close as it gets to how it feels to be at Maker's Mark, where the family's there, the family's cooking for you, the family's making it. So it's really, really a magnificent place. And to kind of bring this all together and taste these individual components of the Private Select, which I love this program anyway. I mean, I kind of love that I don't know what's in it. And actually, it makes it more meaningful, right?
To not know what's in this?
Yeah, because you project yourself onto it.
That's like really spoken like someone who's afraid to make a good guess.
Oh,
no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'll make a bad guess. Well, maybe a good guess. I'll make a bad guess.
Yeah, I think really deliberately all these 5 staves that comprise our Maker's Mark Private Select program are all of these flavor profiles were chosen super deliberately to pull out flavors that are already in our product as a whole. And so it was, I think each one of these is like legitimately a beautiful thing. And it's, this is a delicious thing that we're tasting regardless.
Yeah, no, it is. And I'm glad I get to be part of this. All right. So I got one other question for you, which I ask everybody. And what's funny is that just because, we had a couple false starts, not tonally, but technically, right? I think that in that sense, there was so much minutia to be learned about you, because did you think you'd be talking about makeup, right? Probably not, right? Talking about horror movies, probably not. And so what at first might have been kind of irritating for me turned into a thing where I think people know a lot more about you than you even really maybe intended, which I love that. I love that. So to that end, you're sipping the Riddler, okay? Anywhere in the world, it doesn't matter where. But you can sip it with any movie star, living or deceased, who might you like to sit down and drink with?
Oh no, there's so many potential.
Sure, there's
answers
not
to this
a favorite
question.
one, and I know people
Right,
look at me
it's
they're
like
like,
who's your what's the who you're allowed to cheat on your partner with? Like
Sure,
there's like
right,
what's
right.
that called?
yeah, I can't remember.
Me either, right? But there's like also like who's an incredible like actual actor, right? Or
yeah.
like who oh gosh,
But something's bound to come
any
to
movie
mind.
star?
Doesn't matter.
Any
yeah.
movie star. I'm gonna go with. I don't know. I think that's a very genuine answer for me to say I don't know. That's something I would either need time to decide, or I would like for you to give me a short list of 3. I think that's who I am as a person, and that's a valid and genuine answer for me to say. I can't just pull from the air.
I love it. And after 400 interviews, give or take, that has never happened.
No
This is
way.
the only time. Yeah, so you're special.
I
in that
refuse.
sense.
No, I'm just kidding.
You refuses to answer the question.
I don't refuse. I think
know.
my most genuine answer is I feel so unprepared to make a decision like
Sure.
that on the spot. And that's really,
Wow.
I think that actually speaks a lot to who I am as a person, is that it's very important to me to make the right
Sure.
decision. And I want to be prepared when I make it.
I'm definitely not going to ask you which of the stave finishes are your favorite then. That
Which
would
of
be-
these?
See,
Currently it's spice.
Well, current, right. So
Right.
this is good. It's top of mind.
Also cuvee. I think cuvee is my for life. Cuvee stave is my favorite stave for life. But currently I'm, again, having a little love affair with the spice stave.
Well, Rachel, I didn't have any idea where this conversation would go, but I love this room. I love drinking this Makers with you. And despite things that really irritate me regarding technical issues with sound, it was great to finally catch up and do this. And I can't wait to see people try to guess what the Riddler is, Anyway,
Oh,
Rachel,
right.
Thanks so much for chatting with me. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Yeah, cheers. Well, there we have it. What do y'all think? Rachael Bloom Soto from Maker's Mark definitely has an ability to process a lot of information, right? And I love it that she was carrying on a conversation with me. I'm looking like straight at her, and she's taking notes in a notebook and handing them across the table and stuff. Just like a massive propensity to think and dissect. And when we're sipping these blending components, it's really, really delicious stuff. And I love Maker's Mark. I never get paid for this stuff, right? So if I'm saying a thing, I really do mean the thing. Maker's Mark holds a very dear place in my heart, as it was the best tour I've ever been on. My father and I going on a trip together for the very first time, just us two. Really, really meaningful thing. Family and family. Let's just say that is like the undercurrent here, Maker's Mark. And this batch is delicious. And if you can guess those components, do it. And maybe we can find a cool use for that barrel. And obviously, I'm going to use any excuse I can to talk about horror movies. I think by now, y'all probably know that. Yeah? So thanks everybody for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter how you're thinking, this week seems like I might actually not have that much to do. What the hell is going on? Or if you're thinking, I just painted some Nikes with red acrylic paint so they'd look more like they had blood drops on them, and spooky season's coming up. Please keep dancing.